What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today we're going to have a combo explainer video discussing how one of our new leaders works really well with Heroic Sacrifice and Trench Run. Let's get into it. So here we have Kazuda. He is a character from the Star Wars Resistance TV show, which I haven't seen myself. I don't know if he's a cool character in the show, but he sure is a cool character in Star Wars Unlimited. He is a Resistance pilot leader, and he has this really interesting ability that allows him to blank the text of friendly units, making them lose their abilities. Now they still have their traits, so they'd like if I used this on K2, he would still be a rebel and a droid, but the ability to remove abilities from units can actually be really helpful because there are a lot of units that have downsides. Additionally, he maintains tempo because after he takes his action, you can take an extra action. So for instance, you could remove you could remove a bounty from a unit and then immediately attack with it so that it dies while the bounty is removed. Another thing that you can do with him is just generally play very aggressively because he deploys on 4 resources, something that we've seen with our previous aggro queen, Sabine Wren. So that four resource deployment is really strong for aggressive leaders in Star Wars Unlimited. And additionally, Kazuda here has the ability to be played as a pilot. So you can either play him as a ground unit who's a 2/5, or you can play him as a pilot. So he will be an upgrade that attaches to a friendly vehicle that does not have a pilot already. And if you attach him to a vehicle, he gives +3/+3, and whether you attach him to a vehicle or deploy him on the ground, either way, he still has his ability to potentially remove negative text from your own units. And he can do that on attack now, and it's really cool because a lot of the pilot leaders only have their abilities when they deploy on their pilot side. If you deploy them on the ground, they don't have that. So if you look at like Wedge, for instance, Wedge has his discount ability tied to on attack when he's a pilot, but if you deploy Wedge as a ground unit, he doesn't have the discount anymore. But Kazuda here has his ability on both sides. So very cool stuff. And yeah, normally what you're going to be doing with this is canceling downside text on units. So there are a lot of units in the game that are overpowered for their cost, but they have downsides. So maybe the most common one that you see is built-in bounties. So this cartel turncoat that I'm showing here, 1 cost 2/3. Normally you would have to pay 2 for a 2/3 in space, but the cartel turncoat has that bounty. When the opponent defeats it, they get to draw a card. So 1 for a 2/3 is a good deal, but you have that downside. But with Kazuda, you can blank your unit's text and avoid those downsides. So let's say I play this cartel turncoat. Next turn, I use the leader ability. I remove the abilities from the cartel turncoat. It no longer has bounty, and now even if my opponent takes it out, they aren't going to get that card. So I just got the good side and not the downside. And like I said earlier, this is available whether you're a leader unit, or a pilot upgrade. You don't lose tempo when you're using it, so it can be really convenient. And I think it's a really good ability. Now, here are some cards that it works great with, some both new and old units. So I already talked about bounties, but Fireball here, I think this is the ship that Kazuda uses in the show. It is a 2-cost Cunning Heroism space unit, 3/3 resistance vehicle fighter with ambush, and that's incredibly good for 2. It is like 2 for a 3/3 in space, no text would be super good. This is 2 for a 3/3 with ambush, which is even better, but it damages itself when the regroup phase starts. However, if you're playing Kazuda, you can use his ability, remove that text, and not take damage. And you can do that after you've already gotten the upside of having the ambush. So let's say the opponent plays a 2/3 unit at first, you ambush it with Fireball, get it off the field. Then you use Kazuda's ability to remove the text there, so that you don't take the damage and defeat yourself at the end of the action phase, start of the regroup phase. Millennium Falcon. This is a classic, one of the really, really good legendary cards that we saw in Spark of Rebellion. The Falcon is a 3/4 that enters play ready, but it has this upkeep cost. However, with Kazuda, you can use his ability and clear the upkeep cost from the Falcon. And then on the right, we have the Contracted Hunter. This is a new card with this set, 3 for a 4/4 ambush, which is extremely strong. But when the regroup phase starts, defeat this unit. However, again, use Kazuda's ability on him after you've ambushed him in. Now he doesn't have that text. He doesn't get defeated. And you just played a hyper efficient unit because you were able to get rid of that downside. Um, but there's another element to this. It's not just units. So the rulebook update for Jump to Lightspeed means that losing abilities is now defined differently. Losing an ability isn't just you lose the ability, but it's now you lose and can't gain, which means that it blocks other sources of that ability. And since Kazuda blocks all the abilities on the card, this actually prevents units from gaining abilities in addition to canceling their text. Well, this is an interesting situation. It can be both good and bad. So there are some situations where you might have a buff that says that you gain something. Well, you no longer gain that thing. Now, there are other cards that don't say gain, and saying gain is quite important. So one thing people were curious about was, could you play Entrenched on your unit and then use Kazuda to remove its abilities? The answer is no, because I believe Entrenched just says that the attached unit can't attack. Um, and if Entrenched instead says the attached unit gains, this unit cannot attack, then I believe Kazuda's ability would cancel it, but with the way it's worded, it doesn't work. So you can't entrench your own unit and then use Kazuda to attack anyway. However, you can use this to avoid some negatives on upgrades. So bounty upgrades, I believe, say this unit gains bounty and then whatever the upgrade is. So you can use Kazuda's ability to negate that. And it also means that the downsides of certain events are negated. And there are two specific cards I want to highlight in this video that are really, really powerful with Kazuda. So first up, Heroic Sacrifice, 1 cost, aggression heroism event. This is a classic from Spark of Rebellion. Draw a card, then attack with a unit. For this attack, it gets +2/+0 and gains when this unit deals combat damage. Defeat it. Well, it says this unit gains, when this unit deals combat damage. Defeat it. Kazuda's ability makes it so that you lose and can't gain abilities. So you cannot gain when this unit deals combat damage. Defeat it. And that means Heroic Sacrifice becomes 1 cost +2 power, draw a card with your attack. So that is extremely strong. You can actually even use it on the vehicle that he is piloting, because his on attack ability will kick in before the when this unit deals combat damage trigger would go off. And removes that trigger. So it's a really, really good card with him. And often this is a card that people would play like as a 2x or something, because it's often a good card late but a bad card early. Well, with Kazuda, it's actually a really good card early too, because paying 1 to draw a card and attack with a unit at +2 power without risking losing your unit is really, really, really good. And so Heroic Sacrifice, I think if you're playing Kazuda Aggression, this is like an automatic 3x. You can use this with ground units, with space units, whatever, as long as you use Kazuda's ability on it first in order to make it so they can't gain the downside here. Now, there's another card that is a little more complicated. That is Trench Run. Once again, this is an attack buff event. This is a new one from Jump to Lightspeed. 1 cost aggression heroism event. Attack with a fighter unit. For this attack, it gets +4 power and gains on attack. Discard 2 cards from the defending player's deck. Deal unpreventable damage equal to the difference in the discarded card's costs to this unit. So similar to Heroic Sacrifice, Trench Run grants a power buff and a negative trigger. And so normally the way this works is that it's a high risk, high reward card, because you play it and then you don't really tend to know what's on top of your opponent's deck. So it might be that you look at the difference in those costs and the difference is like 0. Like let's say they flip 2 3-cost cards and your unit takes no damage. But it could also be maybe they flip a 1-cost card and a 7-cost card. The on attack trigger deals 6 damage and your unit is removed before it actually gets a chance to execute the attack. So normally this is a risky card, but Kazuda's ability can be used to avoid that risk and just get the reward. There's a bit of complexity with it if he's deployed, though, because this is an on-attack trigger, and his ability that removes text is also on attack. And that means the 2 on-attack triggers go off at the same time, and even though you get to choose the order in which they go off, the other one is still set up and you can't blank it. So there is a situation where this card's downside is not negated if you use it on Kazuda's own ship. However, you can still use it without the downside if, for instance, let's say you use his leader side to blank the text of your ship before you deploy onto it. Now you already have the blank there. You don't need the on attack trigger for it. So this on attack trigger gets blanked and it can still work. So if you want to play Trench Run on a ship the turn that you deploy Kazuda, use Kazuda's ability on your ship first, then deploy him, then play Trench Run, and you won't have the downside. Alternatively, he does add a bunch of HP to the ship. You could just risk it. Alternatively, you could attack with Kazuda, use his on attack trigger to blank the text of a different unit, and then play Trench Run on that one. So it's a little more complicated to make Trench Run work relative to Heroic Sacrifice, at least if Kazuda is currently deployed as a pilot upgrade. However, it can still be an extremely powerful interaction. It is also worth noting, though, that Trench Run only works specifically on fighter units. So if you have the Millennium Falcon, for instance, the Millennium Falcon is a transport and not a fighter, so that would not work. But overall, it's still a very powerful interaction, as long as you have enough fighters for it. So yeah, that's basically the interaction I wanted to cover here. I wanted to explain what was going on there and highlight also the difference between the way these two cards interact. This is a very unintuitive interaction for a lot of people. I suspect that there are going to be people that are surprised and confused that Heroic Sacrifice doesn't kill your unit, but with the change to the rulebook where this becomes lose and can't gain, Kazuda's ability is maybe even more powerful than it looks at first glance, and I just wanted to highlight that interaction so people are aware of it. There are a bunch of other funny interactions with Kazuda there, and there are some situations where, let's say you have a Green Squadron A-Wing, you use Kazuda's abilities so that you can do your trench run. Well, you also removed your own raid too, so the benefit that you get from doing it isn't necessarily as good as it might look at first glance. There's a bunch of fun little stuff like that. You have to kind of look at the nuance of your unit and what abilities it might already have that you might be removing, and what it is that you're preventing yourself from gaining, and so on. I think he is a leader that is a little tricky to figure out, but I think that he's going to be very strong. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in competition, though it's very early and it's hard to say what exactly is going to happen. Anyway, that is my video, and yeah. If you guys have any thoughts on this, if you think this interaction is crazy and shouldn't be in the game, if you think that there is something that I've missed, if you think there's something else that should be highlighted, I'd be interested to hear from you guys in the comments below. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Until next time, this is Tower number 9, and I will catch you guys later.